Uwaga, znajomość angielskiego wymagana, jako że nie będę tłumaczył, co Jim ma do powiedzenia.
Forced diversity. Now, that's a term I've heard a lot in the past 10 years, and especially in the past few weeks. Now, when the anti-woke set trot that out, not only is it an incredibly stupid criticism, it's also one of the most cowardly that they could use. You see.
Dobra, Jim już z góry pokazuje nam, że nie ma on argumentu przeciw wymuszonej różnorodności i niech to będzie prekursorem do dzisiejszego filmu. Zauważcie, że poza nazywaniem czegoś głupim, Jim nie ma żadnego prawdziwego argumentu, a te, które przynajmniej w stopniu minimalnym ma, łatwo jest obalić.
You see, I have witnessed that term being applied to literally any form of diversity, from the most pronounced center stage representation to a little side character who happens to be part of a marginalized demographic, or pronouns in a drop-down list, or a little tiny pride flag waving in a massive open-world Spider-Man game.
Homosexuals.
And the question I have is this. If any amount of diversity is too much diversity, why do you need the word forced in there? Why do you need that qualification? Is it because anyone who's reasonable would find you incredibly intolerant if you simply said you didn't like a minor bit of diversity in a game?
No więc tak, nazywa każdego, kto wierzy w DEI, różnorodność, równość i integrację, rozsądnym, bo oczywiście argumenty przeciw DEI są głupie i bezsensowne. Z góry nakłada na to etykietę, by potem nie musieć obalać argumentów żadnym sensem czy logiką. Ale wróćmy do wymuszonej różnorodności w grach wideo. Otóż w grach kategorii woke różnorodność nie wynika z niczego innego jak z ukrytego celu. Sama różnorodność w grach wideo istniała praktycznie od samego początku, ale staje się ona wymuszona, gdy staje się ona celem politycznym w grze. Obecnie najlepszym przykładem jest gra Concord, która na Steam miała tagi LGBTQ+, zanim wydawca postanowił je usunąć, kiedy zorientował się, że swoją polityką najpewniej spowodował, że ludzie grę po prostu olali. O dziwo, ludzie naprawdę nie lubią lewactwa w swoich grach, no kto by pomyślał. Do Concord jeszcze wrócimy.
And all I have to say to that is I think I respect people that just use slurs against me more than people who use the term forced diversity, because at least there's an honesty to that. You know? Not saying I'm the bravest girl in the world, but when it comes to that lot, no matter how much I fem up, I'm always going to have bigger balls than them.
Jim nie jest kobietą. Tak po prostu warto o tym wspomnieć, bo z góry pokazuje on jego przesłanie. W tym filmie nie chodzi o gry, tu chodzi o politykę. I dlatego Jim traci tak wiele subskrypcji z każdym wydanym filmem.
I'll say this for the pronoun police who make their purchasing decisions based solely on whether something is woke or not. They've actually stumbled onto a win recently. Now, while it's true that they gleefully bought a distinctly mediocre and already forgotten Hogwarts game just to stick it to the transes...
Gra Hogwarts Legacy jest dobrą grą, ale oczywiście Jim ją upolitycznił, ponieważ J.K. Rowling jest przeciwna ludziom trans. Oczywiście autorka Harry'ego Pottera nie miała nic wspólnego z grą, poza tym, że świat ten jest jej własnością intelektualną.
And they pledged to buy an actual asset flip in Stray Souls as soon as they found out the director was a fascist twat.
No więc twórca słabej gry lubił na Twitterze, cytat, rasistowskie i transfobiczne tweety, koniec cytatu, co według Jima oznacza, że jest on faszystą. A to dlatego, że Jim nie wie, co to jest prawdziwy faszyzm. Jest to człowiek, który nie zna historii i nie wie, czym prawdziwy faszyzm się charakteryzuje. Warto też wspomnieć, że według lewaków z zachodu nawet prawdziwe statystyki FBI, które pokazują, że czarni popełniają większość przestępstw w USA, są rasistowskie. Tak więc niewiele trzeba, by zostać nazwany faszystą albo nazistą, a to dlatego, że lewacy ci nie posiadają prawdziwych argumentów, więc po prostu wyzywają ludzi od najgorszych, bo według nich to oznacza, że nie muszą już niczego argumentować.
I got to admit, after years of hypocritically political consumerism, the pretend apoliticals actually have a good game to rally around. By all accounts, Black Myth Wukong is rock solid stuff. They can finally put down hatred and the other submundane software they narrowed their gaming down to after swearing off anything with a tiny hint of progressiveness. Yes, it's been decided because of some reasons that Black Myth Wukong is antithetical to everything them no-good SJWs stand for. Now, are they going to be normal about having a good game to play? Or no, they're not going to be normal and just enjoy having a good game to play, are they?
Jim z góry zakłada, że jego strona jest normalna, a każdy przeciwny jest nienormalny. Znowu wyzywanie zamiast argumentów, ale hej, dajmy mu dokończyć myśl.
Well, I say they have a good game to play. Are they actually playing it, though? Or have they simply hijacked all discussion about it to such an overshadowing degree that if I were the developer, I'd feel both insulted and disappointed that any discussion about its merits as a game has become all but buried? Let's just call that the Stellar Blade effect. For a long time now, I've categorized the regressive chudsticks who whine about so-called wokeness in video games as the gamers, TM with a capital G. It's a popular term used online to differentiate normal people who play games, aka gamers, from the terminally online strangelings who are so mentally frail they literally cannot handle seeing the word they followed by a slash and a them.
Dobra, dzielimy graczy na graczy normalnych i graczy z wielkiej litery, którzy oczywiście są nienormalni i tylko siedzą i piszą negatywne posty na temat gier woke. I jakoś magicznie Jim wie, że nie robią oni nic innego, nie mają życia i tym podobne i oczywiście nie grają oni w swoje gry. Co jest zarąbistym kłamstwem ze strony Jima. I uwierzcie mi, Jim nigdy nie wspomni o tym fakcie, że w Black Myth Wukong grały miliony ludzi, w tym ponad 2 miliony jednocześnie w pewnym momencie. Jim stawia chochoła i atakuje go, bo jest mu to na rękę.
Lately, however, I've come to realise that separating these columns into gamers and capital G gamers might be giving the latter entirely too much credit. They are, after all, spending entire days on the internet whining about seeing a black woman in a game one time. I never hear about them, you know, playing the video games they claim to be protecting from SJW's wokeness, and their latest attempt at repackaging the one subject they incessantly bang on about, DEI. That stands for Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, by the way. A fairly basic concept that hinged people traditionally find quite reasonable.
Znowu nieprawda, w Wukong grały i grają miliony ludzi. W czasie pisania tego skryptu w grze jest ponad 900 000 ludzi.
Anyway, after seeing how these diversity-fearing imbeciles have acted in the wake of Black Myth Wukong's release, I'm convinced that if they game at all, it's not to enjoy what they're playing. All entertainment is viewed through the lens of a culture war that's become their entire identity. They don't play games for themselves, they play games at other people. And again, that's if they play at all. Alleged fans of Black Myth Wukong have spent most of the past week harassing and lying about an IGN writer for daring to report on the developer's, let's say, spicy attitudes towards women a few months ago.
W sytuację tej reporterki nie wnikałem, słyszałem, że strała ona na devów Black Myth Wukong i potem się ukryła. Czy to jest wszystko prawda? Nie wiem i w sumie nie mam zamiaru tego sprawdzać, nie obchodzi mnie to aż tak do tego stopnia.
From accusing her of lying in her original report, to literally making up things she said, to acting like she made her social media private to hide from them when she's always been private, though what would it say about the angry mob if that were true? These people have been slobbering all over their own unearned self-righteousness. Ironic that they called a legit reporting of facts a hit piece when the grossly irresponsible character assassination going on is aimed at the author. They are not gamers. They're not even capital G gamers TM. They're nothing more than the attack dogs of right-wing grifters who've manipulated them into believing such stupid garbage as Dragon Age Veilguard, erasing straight people.
O proszę, to nie gracze, tylko prawicowi. Oto kolejna próba upolitycznienia przez Jima. I tak to teraz wygląda. Gry typu woke forsują DEI, a ludzie po prostu nie chcą polityki w swoich grach. Ale Jim tego nie rozumie. Dla niego zawsze chodzi o złych prawicowych i kochanych lewicowych. Tak, ten temat ma sens, jeśli chodzi o gry typu Concord i Wukong, ale, wielkie ale, Jim nie wnosi żadnego argumentu. Dalej tylko wyzywa ludzi i zakłada, że nie mają oni życia i nie grają w gry, które tak kochają. Wiem, że się powtarzam, ale tak właśnie wyglądają filmy Jima.
I did see one very apt word for them. They're not gamers. They're tourists. They are outraged tourists. Oh, and don't worry, we'll get to the mass diaper filling that's occurred over Dragon Age. Oh.
Ojej, jak my nie lubimy Trumpa, jak jest jego faszysta, bla 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 bla.
I've got my own term for these online roaming pack hunters. And no, it's not just I like to call them fandom appropriators. I've not seen any of them share their actual opinions on Black Myth's gameplay. I've not seen them talk about their enjoyment of it. I've seen them only tout the game's success as a win for their side of a dumbass war and form up to attack anybody they perceive as the enemy.
Ci tak zwani zawłaszczacze fandomu nie piszą, jak dobre są ich gry, a recenzje na Steam nie istnieją, a miliony grających w Wukong nie istnieją. Jim bardzo wygodnie mija się z prawdą, którą bardzo łatwo udowodnić.
That's all I keep fucking hearing about this game. I have heard about this game all bloody week, and I couldn't tell you what anyone I've seen talking about it actually bloody thinks of the thing. Is it good? Someone just tell me, is Black Myth Wukong good? Because I've got it downloaded, but I figured I wouldn't like it because it's mostly boss fights. Is that true? I don't even know what's true anymore. I think I read that once, before any talk about the actual game got fucking crushed under an avalanche of shit.
Czy Black Myth Wukong jest dobry? Powtórzę to po raz setny. Miliony grających, 95% pozytywnych recenzji na Steam, prawie 500 000 recenzji.
Speaking of questions, I'm compelled to ask the same question I ask whenever I'm harassed day and night by computer game white knights when I publish a review with a quote-unquote controversial score. If the game you're talking about is so friggin' good, why aren't you playing it instead of wasting hours of your time online harassing a complete stranger who doesn't matter? Wukong must be a fucking shit game if libeling an ultimately benign IGN writer is eating into your playtime.
Ponad 500 000 gra w to teraz. Jim, słonko, nawet chochoła nie potrafisz zaatakować sensem.
Stop acting like you're the real gamers here. You know what real gamers are doing? They're spending their spare time playing games, not throwing very literal temper tantrums over a game letting you pick your fucking pronouns! Like, you know what I'll be doing after I post this video? Probably playing Black Myth Wukong.
Jim, zgadnij, co ci gracze robią po napisaniu swoich opinii na temat dziennikarki? Pójdą grać w Wukong i dołączą do prawie 1 miliona innych graczy.
Because it's more interesting than what some of you are doing right now, which is calling me a man in the comments of an increasingly irrelevant YouTube channel, because that's the kind of low-stakes, low-hanging nonsense you care about. Anyway, the response from the online hunting packs to Dragon Age Veilguard's queer representation is not only goddamn hilarious, but incredibly telling as well. Before we get to what a self-report their outrage is, let's sample some of it, shall we?
Zmiana tematu, teraz będzie o Dragon Age, które w swoim trailerze pokazało, że zależy im na DEI, wpychając tak zwaną różnorodność. Jim oczywiście czyta komentarze w deprawujący sposób, żeby pokazać, jak głupie są te komentarze. Problem w tym, że Jim znowu nie ma żadnego argumentu, tylko wyzywanie innych od głupich.
Twitter, formerly ex-user Arkstan has been sharing a terrible of commentary from the game's Steam forums. Content warning ahead for extreme amounts of even more extreme stupidity. This is a no buy from me. This feels like Star Wars acolytes or the Marvels. Absolutely shoehorned agenda and propaganda. Gameplay and old Dragon Age fans are not their target audience. So I am out. Yeah, remember what this pod said about target audiences. It'll be important for later. Extremely woke game director! I hope this game doesn't DEI LGBTQ itself to death. Finn. I like this one because the writer included the T and the Q. Say what you will about the stupidity of the sentiment, at least they're not a turf. We're the white men at. I think I saw one in the entire trailer. Well, now you know how non-white men have felt watching game trailers for most of the medium's entire existence, don't you?
I oczywiście Jim wpycha swoją różnorodność. Widzicie, Jim ma bardzo amerykańsko-brytyjskie podejście do tego, co oznacza, że bycie białym mężczyzną jest złe i niedobre. Biedne, ciemiężone mniejszości etniczne musiały cierpieć, bo za dużo bohaterów w grach było białych. To prawie jakby większość gier robili biali i Azjaci, którzy też mają jasny kolor skóry.
They made Morrigan ugly. Why? Why are they doing this? Yo, BioWare devs, why can't we just have one super attractive female companion in the game? Why did you have to make Morrigan ugly? And you covered her up more? Are you guys religious Puritans or something? You say there's full nudity, but why would anyone want to see ugly women companions naked?
Thick earth! You sad Spastic winker.
So I wasn't planning to go on any derailing tangents for individual comments, but oh boy, there's a lot to unpack with this lamentation. A lamentation that calls Morrigan ugly for basically looking the same but a little bit older and wearing different clothes and a different hairstyle. So it's always fascinating to me how these guys equate sexiness entirely with nudity. Like, hey, I get it. I watch way too much porn as well, but I'm not so poisoned by it that I need to see someone naked to find them attractive. This is one of the most common controversies you see from these people, shrieking in unstimulated rage because a woman is wearing more clothes than she used to and is thus puritanical. That is a self-report in and of itself. If you cannot distinguish beauty from nudity, that is absolutely a you problem. Like the comment admits though, Veilguard will have nudity in it. Of course it will. It's a BioWare game. It's gonna have awkward sex scenes. So exactly how much skin do you need to see at all times before you're satisfied it wasn't made by Puritans? How much do you need? It's like I always say, corporations don't just want some nudity, they want all of the wait, no, that's the wrong catchphrase. Remember how the fandom appropriators screamed puritanical censorship over Street Fighter 6's Cammy wearing pants and a jacket? Like, many of the real Street Fighter fans would agree that her updated look is actually hotter than the, let's face it, unflatteringly dull green leotard. Well, it's hotter aside from the flag-shagging back of the jacket, of course, but to any member of the Reform Party, that's only more reason to pop a huge core boner.
Zauważcie, że nadal brak prawdziwego argumentu z jego strony. Jim pieprzy o nagości i pięknie. Tu ma rację, pierwszy raz nie trzeba nagości, żeby było piękno, ale oczywiście nie podoba mu się flaga na plecach Cammy, bo jest to zła i niedobra flaga powiązana z Reform Party z Wielkiej Brytanii, bo trzeba to wszystko upolitycznić i stracić więcej subskrypcji.
Comically woke trailer. Guys, this is 2024. The woke as possible isn't just a meme. It feels dated. This isn't 2008 where it was funny to invent inept sexuality because a black was elected and it was racist to say anything but praises. We're almost 20 years later. Ghostbusters 2016 was dead on arrival when the trailer came out. Almost 10 years after this, and you still finance this DEI farce? Because a black was elected. Because a black. Is this game woke? Woke mean no buy. All woke game equals bad, so is it woke? Someone pulls update DEI detect on this. That's not the first time I've seen someone post in the Steam forums for a game asking if it's woke. It is seriously the first thing some people want to know about a game, which is just
weird as hell.
A dlaczego ludzie chcą wiedzieć, czy gra jest woke? Bo te gry zawsze, ale to zawsze są złe. Po prostu złe. To jest jeden schemat, który się powtarza.
Usually I want to know if a game's good. Like gory, cuddly carnage. Oh, and yes, DEI detected is an actual thing. Because like I said, these fuckos claim to be completely apolitical, but their gaming decisions are based obsessively on their politics.
I tu Jim nie rozumie apolityczności. Kiedy ktoś jest apolityczny, ten ktoś zwykle nie chce polityki w grze, a lewacy wpychają ją celowo w swoje gry, które potem i tak okazują się złe.
Let's see what the fine folks at DEI Detected have detected lately. Oh, they're angry at Concord. Because it has pronouns in small text at the top right-hand corner of the screen. That's a normal thing to be upset about that I'm sure one day they'll be able to explain in a way that doesn't make them sound like massively bigoted tosspots who are mad at LGBTQ+ people for simply existing in public.
Nikt nie jest rzeczywiście zły na ludzi LGBTQ+, za istnienie. Ludzie są źli, bo LGBTQ+, próbuje upolitycznić wszystko i wpychają swoje gówno do gardła wszystkich wokół. Nawet gdybym nie żartował z tego, że Jim jest mężczyzną, a nie kobietą, za którą się uważa, gdyby Jim po prostu zamknął mordę i nie przypominał się co 5 sekund. Jesteś trans? Super, to bądź, tylko zamknij japę i przestań o tym mówić.
Oh, and they don't want to fuck any of the women. Of course. Too many clothes, I guess.
Right, they clearly don't know what they're talking about. One of them stood there complaining that it's a technicolor nightmare. One of them's like, it's not dark and gritty enough. I'm sorry, you are wrong, and the reason you are wrong is the first road that you see when you walk out of the first town in the first game. It's an Imperial Highway. White, marble, roads. Do you know why?
My husband is a big Dragon Age fan. The biggest one I know. They actually know what they're talking about. They've picked up a lot of inaccuracies in the complaints.
They're really pretty, gorgeous, curving arches.
Mąż, co brzmi jak kobieta, super.
And you know what? When we finally get to see the capital of Tevinter after waiting for so many games, like decades at this point, we get to see something that looks like it's in the middle of the place. It looks like World War II in there.
Woke DEI, woke DEI, woke DEI, like fucking parrots. I did like this one though. Furious that Morrigan has aged as she's gotten older, because the aging process is woke now. Mortality is woke. Actually, I might have to see eye to eye on that one. I mean, I'm 40 and I got mad amounts of pipe from guys who could have sworn I was 26. Well, 2 amounts of pipe. The others pegged me at early 30s before they pegged me in.
Jim udaje, że mężczyźni go podrywali, super.
Anyway, the point I want to make without getting derailed by my own nonsense this time is that I refuse to believe any of these self-styled fans of Dragon Age are actually all that familiar with BioWare games at all. Like, if you're still acting shocked and betrayed that BioWare put queer rep in its games, how long have you actually been playing BioWare games? Like, were any of you even alive when Mass Effect 3 made people pee their pants over the fact you could make 2 boys do a sexing on each other?
Problem w tym, że Mass Effect nie reklamował się na seksie czy różnorodności, a Dragon Age to właśnie robi. Stąd problem wielu fanów.
It is a common tactic of the fandom appropriating attack pack to claim they're the long-term fans, the real fans, who have been betrayed for they aren't the target audience anymore. Darlings, if y'all are so mad about a BioWare game having gays in it that you've sworn off playing their games, you were never the target audience. And you should stop pretending you ever were, because this is what BioWare has done for years. But I can see the clap back to what I'm saying coming a mile away. Maybe they simply think BioWare has gone too far this time. And that's why they're mad now in 2024 current year argument. Yeah, that excuse might work if there wasn't a massive stink raised about gay romances in Mass Effect 3, or one very minor side character in Dragon Age Inquisition being trans. If BioWare has gone too far this time, why were you all so mad at those tiny moments of inclusion? Why are optional pronouns in Starfield, or a tiny they them in the corner of a character selection screen so offensive to you? Why did you need to mod the pride flags out of Spider-Man? Did they hurt you or something? Is that what they did? Did they hurt you, you poor little eggshell princelings?
Śmieszna sprawa, mod, który ukrywa tęczową flagę w Spider-Manie, zmieniał tylko region gry na kraj arabski. Śmieszne, że lewactwo nigdy nie ma nic przeciwko braku różnorodności w krajach arabskich czy Afryce, ale płaczą o tym w krajach większości białych. Ci ludzie nigdy nie walczą o swoje prawa tam, gdzie trzeba, a tam, gdzie im pozwalają, i nigdy tego nie zauważają. Nie zauważają, że im się na to pozwala, bo żyją w wolnym kraju, gdzie nie traci się głowy, dosłownie, za swoje wydziwnienia i nawet zwyrodnialstwa.
Remember when people got mad at a game called Virginia and they labeled it SJW propaganda before it even came out because they saw a black woman was the protagonist and they just assumed the rest? Then when it came out, it was just a very simple mystery story with nothing inherently social justicey. I saw them doing the exact same thing to a new game on Twitter, formerly X, the other day. I can't even remember the game, but they saw one woman of colour in a screenshot and they lost it. Started screaming DEI.
Jim mówi o ekstremach i chociaż nie wątpię, że ludzie płakali o DEI w grach, w których tego nie było, wątpliwe jest, czy Jim potrafi znaleźć 2 strony medalu. Jim widzi to, co chce widzieć. On chce widzieć, jak ludzie płaczą bezsensownie o DEI, a nie chce on widzieć prawdziwych argumentów przeciw DEI. To dlatego też Jim w ogóle nie wspominał o rekordowych liczbach Black Myth Wukong. Jim stawia chochoła i go atakuje. Widzi to, co chce widzieć.
If even the tiniest amount of representation is too much representation for you, fuck you. Whether it's a tiny bit of inclusion in a game that was made for a wide audience, or inclusion in a game that legitimately wasn't made for you, but you just couldn't tolerate its existence. Fuck you. The so-called shoehorned propaganda is the simple acknowledgement of a marginalized person's existence, and it always has been.
O, proszę bardzo. Marginalizowani, biedni, ciemiężeni ludzie koloru, którzy oczywiście nie są marginalizowani w Afryce albo Azji, ale tylko w USA czy Wielkiej Brytanii. I znowu wracamy do wcześniejszego argumentu, czyli czemu ci ludzie nie widzą problemów w krajach o prawdziwej jednolitej etniczności, tylko widzą to w krajach w większości białych.
They act like this regardless of the scale of the inclusivity. To claim otherwise is intellectual cowardice from someone who doesn't want to admit the obvious because they know it would make them sound completely unreasonable. So they say it's just bad design without explaining what is so bad about it because they can't. They say it's forced diversity because they think if they tack the word forced onto it, nobody can call them out on the fact they just said they hate diversity. Like, just say it.
Patrzcie na ten obrazek. Jim znowu musi powiedzieć, że jest trans. I w tym właśnie problem z nim i z grami typu woke. Przestańcie wpychać swoje poglądy i politykę do gier wideo. I wszystko będzie ok. Czarny protagonista? Zero problemu. Czarny protagonista i przypominanie ludziom o marginalizowaniu i ciemiężeniu biednych czarnych, wtedy wchodzi w to polityka i wtedy zaczyna się problem.
Just say you hate diversity. Don't hide behind the word forced or like a little bitch. Just outright say you hate diversity, you hate looking at people who aren't white, you cannot tolerate queer people. It really wasn't that long ago that the alt-right content mill got weeks of outrage over a literal split second of gay visibility in that Buzz Lightyear film.
O, proszę bardzo, jak zwykle biały człowiek zły i oczywiście wspomnienie o alternatywnej prawicy w filmie o grach wideo. A Jim dziwi się, czemu traci subskrypcję. Kiedyś jego filmy były o grach wideo, teraz są o polityce.
We know by now how low your bar for defining propaganda is. Propaganda, by your reckoning, is being reminded of the existence of people who are not you. That is your bar. Just say it. You wouldn't be stalking the internet hunting for inclusive games to attack like the pitchfork-wielding Yarnamites you are otherwise. Oh, Yarnam is the setting for Bloodborne, which is a video game, by the way. Some of you fake gamers won't know that. This past week, the Monster Hunter community successfully drove the status quo warriors out of, well, their community. One of the most prolific ringleaders of the anti-woke mob, whose name I don't care to say because it's unearned attention, so I'm just gonna call him Grundle Bumpsworth, has been manufacturing outrage like it's going out of style, seeming to find a new game to yell woke at every other day. The aforementioned "we're the betrayed true fans" routine was met with firm resistance from the actual Monster Hunter fans who disowned and laughed at the fake controversy.
Sprawa Monster Hunter, tu Jim ma prawdziwą rację, a przynajmniej tak zakładam, bo nie słyszałem o tym. Pewnie dlatego, że Jim widzi co chce widzieć, a ja tylko widzę Monster Hunter i czekam z niecierpliwością.
It's a conclusion that hit me when, for the umpteenth time, I was called a pervert who enjoys beating up defenseless girls against whom I have a biological advantage. Gender-critical losers have been throwing that shit at me ever since I won my first women's wrestling championship. A professional wrestling championship.
To też jest piękne. Pro wrestling jest całkiem wyreżyserowany, więc ludzie płaczący, że Jim ma biologiczną przewagę, faktycznie nie mają racji, ale Jim bardzo lubi chwalić się tym, że ma zwycięski pas w pro wrestlingu. Innymi słowy, Jim chwali się, że reżyser tego show wyreżyserował, że Jim wygrał. Innymi słowy, pas zwycięzcy nic nie oznacza, a jednak Jim musi się nim chwalić, kiedy tylko może. Jakby to było jakieś prawdziwe sportowe osiągnięcie. I dlatego też ludzie śmieją się z faktu, że jest mężczyzną i wygrał przeciw kobietom. Ludzie go trolują, a on na to reaguje. A argument Jima? No, jesteś głupi. I koniec.
Professional wrestling. They routinely claim I have a biological advantage and I'm beating up defenseless women in professional wrestling. You get how fucking stupid that sounds, right? But here's the thing. They have to know what pro wrestling is. They can't not know. And they have got to understand that a performance art in which zombie bikers fight demonic pyromancers isn't like the regular sports they try to exclude trans women from. But they do it anyway. They say a pointless thing that makes them look incredibly stupid. Why? It is because having an actual point is not the point. The point is the exclusion. The point is to show contempt. And they are so full of that contempt, that venom, that seething hatred. They honestly don't care how much they have to humiliate themselves to express it. Some of them might not even know what it is I do. They just know I'm trans, they saw I was involved in a women's thing, and then just went, oh man, biological, blah. Just repeating their handful of stock phrases, or like a talking doll with its string pulled. Because it ultimately doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't matter what wrestling is to them. They just get off on typing biological male 50 times a day. The cruelty is the point. As is often said of the Republicans, who ultimately benefit from the culture wars they've stoked.
Oczywiście trzeba wspomnieć republikanów, no wiecie, w filmie o grach wideo nie wspomni o Arabii Saudyjskiej i jakie tam jaja się dzieją, ale biały człowiek w USA, o zło, zło.
So it is that the pack hunters pretend they're gamers. They pretend they're an abandoned target audience, and they sound whiny, and they get shit wrong, and they make themselves look like ignorant, reactionary crybabies, and it doesn't matter if they're laughed at in the process. What matters is that they keep reminding people like me that being alive is offensive to them. Funny as their dumbassery is, and it can be very funny, one can't lose sight of the fact that what they're ultimately arguing for, while never having the spine to say it out loud, is our complete disappearance. What they want is what that one chode said Dragon Age Veilguard was doing to him. They want our erasure.
Ludzie chcą, żebyście zamknęli mordy i przestali mówić o sobie, żebyście przestali wpychać swoją politykę i ideologię w gardła innych, którzy po prostu chcą dobrej gry. A jak już wspomniałem, gry typu woke są zwykle słabe. I to by było na tyle, jeśli chodzi o najnowszy film Jima Sterlinga. Jak zwykle dużo w nim polityki i ideologii, a mało prawdziwych argumentów. Jim wiele rzeczy postanowił nie wspomnieć, ale za to o fakcie, że jest trans, musiał przypomnieć wiele razy. Nic dziwnego, że nadal traci subskrypcję.